being back and watching the tape, very tough to look at. Fair amount of film that is hard to digest, but all opportunities for us to get better. And have had really good, instructive talks with the staff. Really looking forward to getting with our team this afternoon and then attacking it. What an opportunity to get better, and really to have a week that we can really lay out who we are and what we're about, and how we handle or how we respond to adversity. So looking forward to it. Any questions?
Yeah, Dave, West Virginia's put up some really good defensive numbers. Are they similar at all to Oklahoma State defensively? Or?
I think there is some structural similarities. I think we use the term spinner for three-man fronts with a linebacker, defensive end type body, right, kind of at the heel line of the defensive line in one of the B gaps, and stunts and pressures that can come off of those looks. So they're similar from that perspective. I think they're also similar in that they're very multiple. They're not a bend but don't break defense. They're more of an attacking brand. I think there's some differences just in West Virginia from last year to this. I thought last year there's probably more individual production at all three levels, D-line, linebacker, and DBs, where now there's not quite as much, but there's more team defense with them now. I feel like they're probably better coached. There's a lot of technique on film, a lot of discipline, gap controls on tape. Whereas I think at last year there was a lot of disruption, a lot of I think he's fitting here, but he's making a play over there, and it creates challenges for us for sure. In the run game, they are very disruptive.
What do you have to do maybe offensively to get to a more consistent level?
I think we have to be able to, establish the run. If we're getting safeties that are in the box, right, as much as we were on Saturday, right, I think we've got to be more effective at cracking them. We push crack. We have to execute that in a much more meaningful way. And then we're also going to have to be able to complete balls down the field to stretch defenses to where they can't have, 7, 9, 10-man fronts.
Kalen Barnes didn't participate on Saturday. Was he available, and what's his status now?
He was not. We're aiming to have him available for this Saturday. I think these next 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, is going to be a big tell on that. He's getting some work done on his legs to see if he can be available for us.
Dave, you had 3 interceptions the other day of Spencer Sanders. Defense has had a fair amount of takeaways all season long. Are you liking what you're seeing from that group in terms of not just getting stops, but getting the ball away,
I think there's positives. I think, and we've talked about this, I believe, some before. I think we've got some guys on that side of the ball that have the ability to make big plays. A couple guys now consistently have done it throughout the year. I think the challenge there for us still is to play team defense and to really execute our 1/11th within a defensive call, within a package, within a situation. You look at the last 2 weeks, the first drive of the game was probably for the opponent their easiest drive, and then you look at Saturday, for example, the drive before the half, and then at the drive at the end of the game. So probably the most stressful and maybe most anxiety-filled 3 parts of the game were when we were at our worst. And so to have the ability to play team defense from the start and when it matters most, I think is still something that we need to do, and will really be able to put us at another level from where we're at now.
Dave, you seem to be kind of edgy a little bit in the postgame, which is fine because you lost. But is it time, in a way, are you almost of that mentality of it's time to take off the diapers? We got to go do some things right and get it done?
Well, I think, it is frustrating for me when, you want to win with character, when you really care about winning is very important to me, but how you win is more so. And to make that a real central part of what we want to be about and what we want to display on and off the field, and then to have, and to make that almost a daily point, and to have that not reflect and have that not show up is frustrating. And so usually, you emphasize something and you get it. And so, we're talking about staff-wise about ways that we can be more effective in that area and be able to get a complete buy-in to where we can be better with that. Because I just feel, every game is going to be, a back and forth. Every game is going to be a fight in this league, and rightfully so. And we're going to have our hands full playing one opponent, as we've been playing two here for a while.
Dave, when it comes to pre-snap penalties as far as delayed games or timeouts with the shot with the clock running down, where's the disconnect there with getting the play in and getting it in on time?
Yeah, I think as a coaching staff, myself, I take responsibility for that. That's something we should be much better at. I think the crowd noise, I think late in the game, the pressure, the time of the game, the time that was left, the score. I think all of those things affected. We would be calling guys wouldn't hear us. Hey, this is the call. Are you sure that's the call? Is this and all of that was happening up, and just I think pressure creates abnormal behavior, and so we were able to really be in a pressured situation really for the first time in an environment like that. And so very instructive, very difficult to look at, but a lot of opportunity to get better at. And so that is completely the idea here.
Dave, David Estrada made a really big contribution in the last game. What do you like about him, what he brings to the receiving corps?
I think there's a real strong competitiveness with him. I think there's a really strong maturity with him. I think his work ethic is really strong. I think his there's a toughness to him, and so he can be a blocker as well as a receiver and a runner, and so there's a great flexibility to him. And I think his care factor is very strong, and so we're going to see more and more of him. I think the key for him is to stay healthy.
Dave, I know you look 1 week at a time, one game at a time, but you have this stretch here coming up of 3 home games in 4 weeks. How much, how big is this for you guys, and then I guess for the fans too, to be able to make an impact in that stretch?
We're excited for the fans for this next one for sure. I know, in looking ahead to this week, just seeing the opportunity for us to be able to put a game together, right? To start off a game fast and then to close out, the first half strong, and then to close out the game strong, and to do it with a real strong energy and a real strong competitive maturity. When we get into those pressured situations and those tough moments, to be at our best. I think those are things that we've been really working on and are really looking forward to showing, and would love to be able to have a crowd there that can energize us. I know for our players to be able to play in front of a home crowd is something they look forward to.
Dave, now that you've had the chance to sit down and look at the film, where do you attribute the struggles in the running game? Was it more something they were doing defensively or just a lack of execution, and how much of that is fixable in a week of practice?
Yeah, I think it's all very fixable. I think there is a lot of, I think defensively, and we spoke to this, I think, last week when we met, just a lot of respect for their defensive coordinator. And I think, he put a lot of people in the box and forced us to win on the outside and on the perimeter. And we failed to do that. And so I think once that happens, then there's really limited things you can do when you're outnumbered in a box. And so I think, in terms of running the ball, cracking that 8th or 9th guy and being real effective at that is key. I think, getting the balls on the perimeter. If everyone's inside, then try to take advantage of the math outside. We've got to be able to effectively block on that perimeter for that to happen. And then I think the big takeaway, though, is to not allow people to do that by having them to feel threatened on the perimeter, on the outside in the throwing game.
Do you guys have kind of some break glass in case of emergency looks? I mean, just when running is not working, and then maybe that affects the play action pass. Do you have some other looks that you go, well, let's try this?
Well, the play action pass really should be it. And there was a few examples, I think, in that first half where, if we come down with it, I think that really changes a fair amount of things, because I think that opens stuff up. And I think, in the second half, starting in that third quarter, it opened up after we were able to connect on one of those passes. The run game immediately after all of a sudden showed up. And so it's kind of time tested, that. And so I think that's the main one. I think some of the screens that we had, we've got to build block better on the perimeter. And then I think some of, in the second half, you saw some of the empty sets where we can ID better what coverage and what pressure. And I think you saw some of that to start the third quarter.
Dave, obviously there's emphasis on going 1-0 every week, but as you look further down the schedule, I mean, does this feel like a make or break point in the season when it comes to the game Saturday?
I wouldn't use that language. I would use it more of, it's a game of random events, game of setbacks. How do we respond to it? It's something we talk about a fair amount. And I think it's one thing to nod your head and kind of understand it when we're sitting down, but to be in it and to give your all to something and then to have that not be enough and to make maybe a critical mistake here or to overlook something there, take ownership of it, and then put yourself out there again. That's what this week would be about.
Dave, they've got a veteran quarterback, running back. What do you see from those guys?
Quarterback is savvy. I think the receiver core is very impressive, and I think they'll take the fade balls. There's a fair amount of all-goes, so they'll throw it up. I think their slot receiver is one of the better slot receivers we've seen this far. He might be the best to this date. I think the quarterback has limited ability to move in the pocket, but knows where he's going to put the ball. And so his decision making and his processing is pretty impressive. Then I think the running back is physical. They're a duo play scheme, a lot of double teams at the point of attack with the offensive line, and the running back is patient and physical to where he could hit it downhill or he can bounce it, right, if you're building a wall in the correct manner. And so I think offensively, I know that there's been some challenging games, but they've got the pieces, and they're looking to get everything kind of clicking, and we want them to wait another week for that to happen.
Dave, where did the philosophy of using defensive guys at fullback come from? And Dylan just seems like an ideal kind of guy for that.
Yeah, well, we don't, there wasn't a bunch of fullbacks on the roster, and I think, Dylan has that ability to dig people out and, fill a B gap or get on the perimeter in a C or D gap and then run and lift an offender and move him back. And so I think, his ability to play with leverage in those areas. And then I think he also has a lot of linebacker is running to daylight, which running backs do quite a bit amount of themselves. And so I think that has helped him in terms of when there is traffic, finding a seam, and he's been right on it. And so I know he enjoys the call for sure. We never have to look hard to find him.
I may have missed it. Do you expect Bernard back this week?
All points to him coming back, and so we're going to see a little bit of him today. We have a practice later on today, and so some of his reps will be limited, and then I'm sure tomorrow will be limited as well, but we're anticipating having him.
You mentioned it's a game of setbacks. That's football.
Mm-hmm.
no coach wants to lose, but does a part of you as a coach sort of relish the challenge of this week to see if the guys come out with the right energy, and it's kind of that, hey, let's see what you're made of sort of mindset?
Well, a game of random events, a game of setbacks, I would say that life is like that too. And then, I would rather win than lose. But then I think when you have a team that's believing, and you have a team that cares about each other and is invested in each other, right? When you can be real about what's real. I think after, we may have mentioned this last week, but after every Saturday game, you're on Sunday or Monday, you've got yourself a brand new team. And so based upon Saturday's events and the feelings and the emotions and the decisions and the consequences and all of it, to be real with what's real and to come together and to put it all out there again, right? That's something that to this state we have not done yet. It was like, we can look at last year, and I think last year is difficult because it's hard to push people when you're afraid of losing people, right? And just the situation last year with myself and the setup of it and everything else. And so this is an entirely probably more normal or different setup than that. And so to be able to push people so that they can see what we see as coaches is the challenge this week.
You see and you hear about players eventually watch the film. They can tell whether they've done something. How are the coaches after a game like Saturday? What was that room like?
Yeah, very reflective, very disappointed, very very hard on themselves. And a lot of my meetings with them yesterday was that way. I think make sure on Sundays to kind of clean the day to where I watch all the special teams reps with our coordinator, I watch all of the offensive reps with the offensive staff, and then watch all of the defensive reps with the defensive staff. And the reason for that is so that nothing kind of slips by, nothing sneaks through, right? And the film doesn't lie, and so the timeouts to protect the clock running out or the 12 guys on the field, those are just inexcusable. And so I put myself as the first one up that can do better in that area. And so for us to all see it and look at it and own it, I think was a big thing.
Anything else, Coach?
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, guys.